Welcome to Daedalus Debugger, a podcast series conceived by Luciano Ambrosini and co-created with me, Ive. Today we will discuss the convergence of AI and computational design, reshaping architecture and the AEC industry. Enjoy your listening.
All right, so get this. We're diving into a world where buildings aren't just designed. They're basically dreamt up by algorithms. AI and architecture. Who knew, right?
Yeah, it's a huge shift,
Yeah.
We're way past the days of computers just being fancy drafting tools.
Right. But for those of us just catching up, computers already revolutionized architecture, right? I mean, look at the buildings going up now. Crazy curves, weird shapes. That's all thanks to computer design already, isn't it?
Exactly. Architects have been using algorithms for decades to create those complex forms you're talking about and to find the optimal solutions for structural challenges, making sure those buildings actually stand up.
Okay, so where does AI come in then? Is it just like computers on steroids?
It's more like, imagine going from a calculator to having a design genius on speed dial, but not just any design genius. We're talking about one that's analyzed every building ever made.
So it's not just about doing things faster, it's about AI actually learning from a massive amount of architectural data.
Yeah, you can tell it what you want to achieve, and it can generate forms and plans that honestly might never have even crossed a human architect's mind.
So it's like having a brainstorming partner who's always got a million ideas.
A brainstorming partner who's also a technical genius. For example, think about these wild organic forms we're seeing in architecture now. Structures that kind of mimic nature, but on a totally different scale.
Wait, are we talking buildings shaped like giant beehives or something?
You're getting the idea.
Okay, that's wild.
Right.
But it's not all just about looks, right?
No, not at all. The optimization aspect is huge. Imagine you're an architect and you say, okay, AI, I need a building that's energy efficient, uses sustainable materials, can withstand a hurricane. The AI can actually juggle all those factors in a way that would take a human team, I don't know, months, maybe years to figure out.
So you're saying it's like having a design partner with superpowers, but instead of capes and masks, it's algorithms and data.
Precisely.
But hold on, if AI can do all this, what happens to architects? Are we all going to be out of a job?
The age-old question. Humans versus machines. It's a fair concern. Remember the Luddites?
Wait, weren't they the folks who went around smashing those textile machines because they thought they were stealing their jobs?
Yeah, and look at us now. Technology changes things, but it rarely makes entire professions obsolete. What we're likely to see is a shift, a transformation.
So architects of the future, they're going to need some serious tech skills then.
It's not just about learning new software. It's about a fundamental change in how we think about design and our role in it. You mentioned cyber permutation earlier, and honestly, that's not far off.
Okay, so what does that even mean? What will architects actually be doing in this brave new world?
Well, one thing's for sure, it's an exciting time to be in the field. AI has the potential to unlock a whole new level of creativity and problem solving in architecture. It's about pushing boundaries, exploring new forms and ideas, and ultimately designing better buildings for a better future.
So instead of disappearing completely, architects are basically getting a, what did you call it, a cyber makeover. It's like we're trading in our drafting tables for something straight out of Star Trek.
It's a pretty apt analogy.
But this whole cyber permutation thing, it makes me wonder, what skills will architects actually need in this future where AI is calling the shots, or at least, whispering in their ear?
Well, we might see a higher demand for architects who are not just design gurus, but also, tech savvy, able to speak the language of AI. You used the term prompt engineer earlier.
Right. So those folks who can sweet talk those AI image generators into creating masterpieces, architects will need to do that with buildings.
Think of it less about sweet talking and more about precise communication, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Architects will need to know how to feed the AI the right information, set the right parameters to achieve their design goals.
So it's less about replacing architects and more about the skills they need to stay ahead of the game, right?
Exactly.
But, thinking about this whole AI revolution in architecture, it makes me think about access. Because right now, some of this cutting edge AI stuff seems pretty exclusive, like a members only club for design, disruptors.
That's a really crucial point. We can't talk about the future of architecture without talking about access. You're right, a lot of these AI tools are really only within reach of large firms, the ones with the big budgets.
And that just widens the gap, right? You'll have these smaller firms and independent architects struggling to keep up.
It's a valid concern. And it's not even just about who can afford the software. It's about Who gets to shape this technology? Who controls the data these AI models learn from?
It's like if we're not careful, we could end up with a handful of tech companies basically dictating the future of design.
Exactly, and that impacts everyone.
Okay, so how do we prevent that? How do we make sure that this incredible technology is used for good to benefit everyone?
It's a big question, and there's no easy answer. But one thing we need is more transparency in how these AI systems are developed. We need to know how these algorithms are trained, what data is being used. It's like an ingredient list.
Right, so we want to know what's going into the recipe, not just blindly trusting the chef.
Exactly. Transparency builds trust.
Okay, so more transparency. Got it. What else?
We need to expand the conversation. It can't just be the tech folks. Architects, ethicists, policymakers, everyone needs to be involved in figuring out the ethical framework around AI in architecture. Because it's not just about code, it's about values.
It's just a massive collaborative effort.
Yes. And speaking of collaboration, one of the articles you shared mentioned open source AI. And that's potentially a game changer when it comes to access.
Right, because if you make these tools and the data they use freely available, it's like the difference between a private concert and a free festival. Everyone gets to participate.
Exactly. But of course, there are potential downsides too. Some people argue that making everything open source could actually stifle innovation.
Wait, so if companies can't protect their inventions, they'll be less likely to invest in creating new stuff.
It's a complex issue. We need to strike a balance between encouraging innovation and making sure this technology is accessible. There's no easy answer.
Right, finding that sweet spot where everyone benefits. But this all goes back to the architect's role in this AI-powered future. It's not just about learning to code or becoming a data wizard. It's about something bigger, right?
Absolutely. Architects need to be more than just tech savvy. They need to be, ethical guides, making sure that these tools are used to serve humanity and not the other way around.
Right, because it's about designing the buildings, but also it's about what it means to be human in a world that's increasingly shaped by algorithms, right? There was that term antronomist that one of the articles used.
It's a bit of a mouthful, but it captures the idea well. An antronomist is basically an architect who puts human needs and experiences at the forefront of their design process, even, or perhaps especially, when AI is involved.
So like a human advocate in a world of intelligent machines.
Precisely. And that brings us to another fascinating aspect of this whole conversation.
So we're talking about a future where architects, they're not just masters of like blueprints and building codes, right? They're also like champions for the human experience in this world that's, becoming more and more shaped by algorithms. But what does that actually look like? How does this whole AI thing actually change the way we experience, the buildings around us just in our everyday lives?
Well, one area where I think we might see a pretty big shift is in personalization.
Okay, what do you mean personalization?
Imagine a world where buildings can kind of adapt to our individual needs and preferences in real time.
Okay, hold on. Are we talking about buildings that, change color based on your mood or something?
Think even more nuanced than that. Imagine a home that can reconfigure its layout based on what you're doing.
Oh, wow, okay.
Or a workplace that adjusts the lighting and temperature based on, individual preferences.
So it's like the building becomes this chameleon kind of adapting to the people inside it?
Yeah, exactly. We're talking about buildings almost becoming more like living organisms, sensing and responding to their occupants.
That's kind of wild, but I have to admit it's a little creepy too, isn't it?
It definitely blurs the lines, yeah.
Yeah. Because how much do we want our buildings to know about us? You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. That's where that whole antronomous idea is so important. We have to be very intentional about how this technology is used. Make sure that these responsive environments are actually empowering for people, not manipulative.
It's like we don't want to end up with buildings that are subtly nudging our behavior or even worse, reinforcing existing biases, all in the name of personalization.
Precisely. It all comes back to ethics.
So it's not even just about designing buildings anymore. It's like we're designing the relationship between people and their environment. That's a huge responsibility.
It really is. It requires a whole new way of thinking about architecture.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just be good at the technical stuff. We have to ask those bigger questions about the kind of world we want to create.
And how do we make sure that everyone has a voice in shaping that world? Because, if we're not careful, it's just going to be the tech giants, the ones with all the money, calling all the shots.
You hit the nail on the head. That's why having these conversations about open source AI, about ethical guidelines, about making sure there's diversity in this field. Those are all so important. This isn't just about aesthetics or efficiency. This is about shaping the future of our cities, our communities, our lives.
It's almost overwhelming when you think about it.
It's a lot to unpack, that's for sure.
It really is. But I think this deep dive has at least given us a starting point, right?
Absolutely. The important thing is that we're having this conversation.
Right.
And that we understand this isn't some kind of predetermined future. We have agency, As designers, as citizens, we have a say in how this all plays out.
So what can people do? What's our takeaway here?
Stay informed, ask tough questions, and don't be afraid to speak up for the future you want to see. A future where AI serves humanity, not the other way around.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap things up. But as you go out into the world, keep thinking about these things.
Keep learning.
Keep learning, yeah. What kind of world do you want to live in? What role do you want AI to play?
The future is still being written.
And that's our show for today. Until next time, keep diving deep.
Thanks for listening. See you on the next episode of Daedalus Debugger, the architect in the digital maze. Bye!